I need to tell you something before another moment passes. Something I have carried quietly for longer than I want to admit. And I know there is a possibility that when you hear this, you might wonder why I waited so long. You might ask yourself why someone would hold something so important inside when the truth was already asking to be spoken. But some truths are not difficult because they are complicated. Some truths are difficult because once you say them, you cannot take them back. And I am standing at that point now. The point where silence becomes heavier than the risk of being misunderstood. The point where protecting myself starts to feel like losing the one person I have spent so much time hoping to find. You, my future wife. I do not know where you are right now. Maybe you are sitting somewhere quiet. Maybe you are surrounded by people who love you. Maybe you are carrying your own memories, your own disappointments, your own unanswered questions. Maybe you have reached a place in life where you no longer believe every promise you hear. Maybe you have learned that beautiful words can sometimes hide empty intentions. And maybe that is why I need you to understand something about me. I am not coming to you with a perfect story. I am not coming as someone who has never been afraid. I am not coming as someone who always knew the right decision. I am coming as someone who has spent years building things that people could see while hiding the parts of me that nobody ever noticed. People often look at what someone creates and assume they understand the person behind it. They see achievements. They see confidence. They see someone who appears certain. But they do not see the nights when the room becomes quiet and every achievement suddenly feels smaller than the question inside your heart. A question like, who will be there when there is nothing left to prove? Because eventually, every person reaches a moment where success cannot answer the deepest questions. A moment where you stop asking, what can I build? And you start asking, who do I want beside me while I live this life? And that question has followed me for a long time. I have met many people. I have had conversations that seemed meaningful. I have stood in rooms full of intelligent, impressive, successful individuals. But there is a difference between someone who can stand beside your achievements and someone who can stand beside your fears. And I think that difference is where real love begins. Not when everything is easy. Not when two people only see the beautiful parts, but when someone sees the uncertainty, the hesitation, the scars you tried to hide, and they still choose to stay. That kind of love is rare. And maybe that is why I have been afraid. Because when you have spent your life controlling outcomes, love becomes terrifying. You can calculate risks. You can create plans. You can solve problems. But you cannot control another person's heart. You cannot guarantee someone will understand your silence. You cannot force someone to recognize your intentions. You cannot build a machine that tells you whether someone will stay when life becomes difficult. Love is the one place where even the most prepared person has to. I do not know. And that uncertainty has frightened me more than I expected, because I can handle failure. I can handle criticism. I can handle people doubting my ideas. But the thought of finding someone truly special and then losing her because I was too cautious. That thought hurts differently. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to almost find something precious but hesitate? Because you are afraid, your hands are not steady enough to hold it. Have you ever looked at a beautiful possibility and thought, what if I am too late? What if I waited too long? What if the person I was searching for was waiting for me, but I was too busy protecting myself? Those questions are difficult because there are no easy answers. And I want to be honest with you. There have been moments when I convinced myself that maybe love was something I could postpone. Maybe after one more achievement. Maybe after one more challenge. Maybe after proving one more thing to the world. But life has a strange way of showing you that time does not negotiate. The moments you think you can delay are often the moments you never get back. And that is why I am here. Because I do not want to reach a future where I have everything except the person I should have fought for. I do not want to look back and realize I was brave everywhere, except in the one place where courage mattered most. With you, I want you to know something. When I imagine meeting you, I do not imagine a perfect scene. I do not imagine some unrealistic moment where everything suddenly becomes clear. I imagine something much more human. I imagine two people sitting together, both carrying years of experiences that shaped them. Two people who have both been hurt. Two people who have both wondered whether opening their heart again is worth the risk. I imagine looking at you and realizing that the most beautiful thing about you is not what everyone else notices. It is the strength nobody saw, the kindness you showed when nobody was watching, the patience you gave when nobody thanked you, the battles you survived without needing applause. Because the older we become, the more we understand something important. Love is not about finding someone who has never been broken. Love is about finding someone who has been through storms and still chooses to remain gentle, and I wonder, did anyone ever tell you how rare that is? Did anyone ever look at the life you have lived and understand how much strength it took for you to become the woman you are today? Or did people only notice what you could give them? Because I do not want to love the version of you that the world sees. I want to know the version of you that appears when nobody is watching. The woman who thinks deeply, the woman who remembers small details, the woman who sometimes says she is fine because she does not want to burden anyone, the woman who learned to be strong because she had no other choice. That is the woman I want to meet. But I need to tell you something else. There is a reason this message matters so much. There is a reason I feel like I cannot keep waiting. Because there is something I have been carrying. Something I have not been able to explain. And before I tell you, I need you to understand that it is not because I wanted to hide something from you. It is because I was afraid of what the truth would mean. I was afraid that if you knew everything, you would see me differently. I was afraid that the person I wanted most to understand me would be the person who walked away. And that fear is difficult to admit, because people expect strength to look like confidence. But sometimes, strength looks like finally admitting you are scared. Sometimes strength looks like saying, I need someone, not because you are incomplete, not because you cannot stand alone, but because life feels different when you have someone who truly knows your heart. Before I continue, I want you to know that wherever you are watching this from, I hope you feel that this moment belongs only to us. If these words found you at the right time, stay close and share a little about where you are watching from. And if you feel connected to this journey, subscribe, because I want you to be here for the conversation we still need to have, because the truth is, I have not told you the real reason yet, and I need you to understand why I hesitated before I say it. I have spent so much of my life making decisions based on logic, numbers, evidence, predictions, possibilities. But love does not arrive with a guarantee. It does not come with a contract saying, this person will never hurt you. It does not promise that every day will be easy. And maybe that is why so many people avoid it, because real love asks for something terrifying. It asks you to be seen, completely. Not the successful version. Not the confident version. Not the version you show the world. The real version. The one who wonders if he is enough. The one who remembers every mistake. The one who sometimes fears that the person he loves will eventually discover all the reasons to leave. And I have had that fear, more times than I want to admit. There were moments when I questioned whether I was capable of giving someone the kind of love they deserved. Not because I did not care. Maybe because I cared too much. Because when you truly value someone, losing them becomes your greatest fear. You start imagining conversations that never happened. You start preparing for goodbye, before hello has even arrived. You start creating distance to protect yourself from pain that has not even happened. And that is the cruelest part about fear. Sometimes it convinces you to destroy the thing you were trying to protect. Have you ever pushed someone away because you were afraid they would leave first? Have you ever acted like you needed less love because admitting you needed more felt dangerous? I understand that feeling, because I have lived with it. I have wondered if I should stay guarded. I have wondered if my heart was safer locked away. I have wondered if finding the right person was worth the possibility of losing them. But then I realized something. A heart that is protected from pain is also protected from connection. And I do not want a life where I never lose anything because I never allow anything to truly matter. I want a life where something matters so much that it scares me. I want a love that challenges me. A love that forces me to become more honest. A love where I cannot hide behind achievements. A love where someone can look at me and say, I know who you are when nobody is watching. And I can finally say, yes, and I am still here. But there is something I need to confess. There was a moment when I almost made a decision that could have changed everything. A decision that looked right from the outside. A decision that made sense. A decision that many people would have understood. But deep inside, something felt wrong. And that feeling has stayed with me, because sometimes the biggest mistakes in life are not the choices that fail. They are the choices that succeed. While taking you away from what your heart truly wanted, and I have been afraid that I was about to choose something easier instead of something real. I have been afraid that I was about to choose comfort over connection, And maybe you need to hear this because you have faced the same thing. Maybe someone once chose convenience over you. Maybe someone saw your heart, but decided something else was easier. Maybe someone made you question whether you were worth choosing. I want you to know something. Being difficult to replace is not the same as being truly loved. The right person does not stay because you are useful. They stay because your presence changes their world. And that is what I have been searching for. Not someone who needs me, someone who chooses me. There is a difference. A person can need what you provide, but love begins when someone values who you are. And I need to tell you why this matters before I reveal what I have been holding back. Because the truth I have not shared is connected to the biggest fear I have ever faced. The fear that maybe I would finally find the person I was waiting for, and still lose her. Not because of another person, not because of distance, not because life was impossible, but because I was too afraid to take the risk, and that is a possibility I cannot accept anymore, because some doors only open once, some moments only come once. And some people enter your life in a way that makes you realize you have been preparing for them all along. So I am standing here, ready to tell you what I should have said earlier. But before I say it, I need you to understand one thing. The truth I am about to share is not just about my past. It is about a choice that could change everything. And I am not sure if you will understand it. I am not sure if you will forgive the hesitation. I am not sure if you will still see me the same way. After you know why I was afraid, because I haven't told you the real reason yet, and when you finally hear it, you will understand why this moment could not wait any longer. I need you to understand something before I tell you what happened. The hardest battles in life are not always the ones that happen in front of people. Sometimes the hardest battles happen quietly, inside a person who looks completely fine. Sometimes the person everyone believes is fearless is the same person who lies awake, wondering if he has made the right choices. And that is where I found myself. At a place where everything around me suggested I should feel satisfied, but something inside me kept asking a different question. Who will you share this life with? Because achievements become memories, moments become stories, things you build eventually become things you leave behind. But the person who holds your hand when everything changes, that person becomes part of who you are. And I think that is what scared me the most. Not the idea of being alone. I have been alone before. I have worked alone. I have carried responsibilities alone. I have faced uncertainty alone. The fear was different. The fear was finding someone who finally felt like home, and realizing I was the reason she left. Have you ever felt that fear? The fear that maybe the person you love will not leave because they stopped caring, but because you were too late to show them how much they mattered? Because sometimes love does not disappear because there was no feeling. Sometimes love disappears because two people were waiting for the other person to be brave first. And I do not want that story. I do not want us to become two people who once had a chance, but were too afraid to reach for it. I have seen people lose beautiful things because they thought there would always be more time, more conversations, more opportunities, more chances to say what they really felt. But life does not always give warnings before changing everything. Sometimes a person is standing in front of you today, and tomorrow they are only a memory you wish you could return to. That thought has changed the way I look at love, because love is not just about feelings. Feelings are easy when everything is new. Real love begins when fear appears, when doubts appear, when reality tests the connection. That is when you discover whether two people are only attracted to each other, or whether they are willing to protect what they have created together. And I want something real. I do not want a relationship built on perfect moments. I want the kind where we can sit in silence and still feel understood, the kind where we can disagree without destroying each other, the kind where we can admit, I am scared, without feeling weak, because the strongest relationships are not created by two people who never struggle. They are created by two people who decide that the struggle is worth facing together. But there is something I need to admit. For a long time, I did not know if I was ready for that kind of love. I thought I was. I thought wanting someone was enough. But wanting love and being prepared to receive love are two different things. Because love requires you to surrender parts of yourself that you have spent years protecting. It requires honesty. It requires patience. It requires admitting that someone else's heart is now something you must care for. And that responsibility is enormous, because the wrong person can break your heart, but the right person can reveal the parts of yourself you never knew existed. And that possibility is beautiful, but terrifying, I have spent years trying to understand problems that had solutions. But you are not a problem to solve. You are a person to understand. And maybe that is the lesson I needed to learn. Maybe love was never supposed to be something I controlled. Maybe love was supposed to be something I experienced, something I allowed, something I trusted, but trust is difficult when your past has taught you to be careful. There are moments from my life that shaped the way I see relationships, moments where I learned that people can promise forever and still walk away, moments where I learned that words are easy when there is nothing to lose. And maybe that is why I became someone who watches actions more than promises, because anyone can say, I will stay. But staying when things become difficult, that tells you everything. And I want to be that person for you. Not the person who appears when everything is beautiful, the person who remains when life becomes complicated, the person who chooses you again and again. But before I could promise that to you, I had to face something uncomfortable. I had to face the possibility that maybe I was not searching for love. Maybe I was searching for someone to heal a part of me I refuse to confront. And that is not fair to another person. A partner should not be a replacement for what you have not healed. A partner should be someone you walk beside, while both of you continue growing. That realization changed me, because I stopped looking for someone to complete my life, and I started looking for someone I could share my life with. There is a difference. One comes from emptiness, the other comes from love. And I want you to know that I do not come to you expecting perfection. I do not expect you to always be happy. I do not expect you to never doubt. I do not expect you to never feel tired. I want the real you, the woman who has good days and difficult days, the woman who sometimes needs reassurance, the woman who sometimes needs someone to say, I understand. Not because I have all the answers, but because I am willing to stay while we find them. And that is why this confession matters. Because there is a truth about me that I have avoided saying out loud, a truth that explains why I have been so careful with my heart, a truth that explains why, even when I wanted to move closer, something inside me kept pulling me back. I haven't told you the real reason yet, because I was afraid that if you knew, you might think differently about me. You might wonder if I was ever truly ready. You might wonder if my hesitation meant I did not care enough. But the truth is the opposite. Sometimes we hesitate the most when something matters the most. A person who does not care has nothing to lose. But a person who deeply cares feels every possible consequence before making a choice. And I have felt every consequence. I imagined the possibility of losing you, before I even had the chance to hold your hand. I imagined you finding someone else, someone who arrived sooner, someone who was less afraid, someone who did not need time to understand what I understood too late. And that thought has haunted me. Because what if the person I was waiting for was waiting too? What if we were both standing on opposite sides of the same door, both hoping the other person would open it? That is the tragedy of many relationships. Not that love was missing, but that courage arrived too late. And I do not want courage to arrive after you are gone. I need to tell you about the moment everything changed. The moment I realized I could not continue pretending that emotions could simply be managed like a business decision. Because love does not wait for perfect timing. Love does not ask if your schedule is clear. Love does not care if you have everything figured out. Sometimes love arrives while you are still afraid. Sometimes love arrives while you are still healing. Sometimes love arrives and asks one question. Will you choose this, even without guarantees? And that question changed everything for me, because I realized I had spent so much time trying to avoid pain that I almost avoided the greatest possibility of my life, you. But then something happened. Something that made me question everything. Something that made me wonder if I was about to make the biggest mistake of my life. I found myself standing between two different futures. One future looked safe, predictable, easy to explain. The other future felt uncertain, risky, but it felt alive. And the most frightening thing was, I almost chose the safer one. I almost convinced myself that comfort was enough. I almost told myself that maybe wanting something deeply did not mean I should pursue it. And that is the part I am ashamed to admit, because sometimes we do not lose people, because someone else takes them away. Sometimes we lose them because we choose fear. We choose silence, we choose what feels easier. And I came dangerously close to doing that, but something inside me refused to accept it, because every time I imagined that future, something felt missing, and that missing piece was you. I need you to understand how serious that moment was, because it was not about choosing between two people. It was about choosing between two versions of myself. The version that hides from risk and the version that finally accepts that love requires courage. And I was terrified, because choosing you meant accepting that I could be hurt. Choosing you meant allowing someone to have the power to affect me. Choosing you meant no more hiding behind achievements, distractions, or excuses. It meant being seen. Completely. And that is the most dangerous place a person can stand. Not in failure, not in uncertainty, but in front of someone they truly love. With nothing left to hide. And that is where I found myself, at the edge of a decision that could change everything. Because there is still one thing I have not told you. One truth that explains why I almost walked away from the very thing I wanted most. And when you hear it, you may understand why I was silent, but you may also wonder why I waited so long, because the answer is not simple. The answer is connected to the one moment I thought I might lose you forever, and I need to tell you what happened. I need you to know what happened next. Because that moment changed the way I understood love forever. I was standing between the life I had built and the life I secretly hoped for. One path asked me to remain protected, the other asked me to become vulnerable. And vulnerability is frightening when you have spent years convincing yourself that you can handle everything alone. I realized something painful. I was not afraid of loving you. I was afraid of how much you would matter. Because when someone becomes important, they also become the person who can hurt you the most. Your smile can change your entire day. Your silence can create a storm inside your mind. Your happiness can become something you protect more than your own. And that kind of love requires responsibility. I had to ask myself a question I had avoided for too long. Am I ready to love someone, or am I only ready to be loved? Because those are not the same thing. Being loved feels comforting. But loving someone means showing up even when you are tired. It means choosing patience when frustration would be easier. It means staying honest when hiding would protect your pride. And I knew that if I came to you, I could not come halfway. You deserved the whole truth. You deserved someone who was not just present during beautiful moments, but someone who would remain when life became difficult. That was the moment I stopped thinking about what I could lose, and I started thinking about what I would regret losing, because regret is a strange kind of pain. Pain from a wound can heal, but the pain of knowing you never tried, that can stay with you for years. I did not want to look back one day and wonder what would have happened if I had been brave enough. What would have happened if I had spoken sooner? What would have happened if I had trusted my heart instead of negotiating with my fears? Have you ever had a moment like that? A moment where your heart knew the answer before your mind was ready to accept it? I think many people spend their lives waiting for certainty, but certainty rarely comes before courage. Sometimes you have to take the step first. Sometimes you have to say, I am scared, but I am still choosing this. And that is what I want you to know about me. I am not promising that I have never been afraid. I am not promising that I have never doubted. I am promising that when something truly matters, I will not run away just because it is difficult, because you are not someone I want to lose, because I was too careful. You are not someone I want to remember as the person I almost chose. You are someone I want to choose completely. There is still a truth I have carried quietly. The reason I was afraid was never because I doubted your worth. It was because I questioned my own ability to give you the love you deserved. I wondered if my responsibilities, my past, and my imperfections would become reasons for you to leave. But then I understood something. The right person does not need a perfect version of you. They need the honest version. The version willing to grow. The version willing to apologize. The version willing to say, I do not have every answer, but I want to find them with you. And that is what I am bringing to you. Not perfection. Not a fantasy. A promise that I will never stop choosing honesty over comfort. Because the most important things in life are not built by people who never feel fear. They are built by people who feel fear and move forward anyway. So wherever you are, I hope you understand this. I am not coming to you because I need someone to complete me. I am coming to you because I have finally learned that a meaningful life is not measured only by what you achieve. It is measured by who you love, who loves you, and whether you were brave enough to protect that love. And if there is one thing I want you to remember, it is this. Sometimes the greatest love stories do not begin when two people find each other. They begin when two people finally become brave enough to stop hiding.